Hello, folks. This is Josh Money with Podcast for All Seasons. We are live. We are doing episode 8 of season 2, and this part of our episode are kind of two-parter. We're going to be wrapping up DC on TV's fall preview for 2015. We're actually going to be talking about the rest of the shows that we wanted to try and squeeze in last time, but we just didn't have enough time. There's quite a bit of content this season, or rather this season of television. I think that once we actually get into everything, you'll kind of see why we weren't able to fit it into last week's episode, even though we covered several shows last time. But as with me as always, rather, is Mr. Eric Joseph, and I will let him get into the fray. Eric, what is going on, and what are we going to be talking about today?
Hi, Josh, and hi to all of our listeners. This is Eric Joseph of DarkKnightNews.com, DCComicsNews.com, and Multiverse Entertainment. And as Josh said, we're continuing our DC TV fall preview and some shows that premiere in 2016. If you want to hear us talk about Arrow, The Flash, Gotham, and iZombie, please go listen to Season 2, Episode 7. So the first show we're going to get into here is Supergirl. I believe it premieres October 26th, a Monday, on CBS. It's going to be going head-to-head with Gotham, so it kind of surprises me because not only they're two comic book-based shows, they're two DC shows, but CBS reasons that they feel that Supergirl can appeal to more families and have a broader fan base. So we'll see how it goes, and before I delve into the details, I'll just say that I guess I'll have to choose. One show I'm going to watch live, the other is going to be recorded, but unless Gotham gets really good in these first few episodes, Supergirl's probably going to be one I watch live. And you're probably asking, Eric, how can you make that judgment about Supergirl? Well, first, let's go into saying we have the optimism. The show being produced by Andrew Kreisberg and Greg Berlanti, who have brought us shows such as Arrow, The Flash, and they'll be producers on Legends of Tomorrow as well. So, again, we've got guys who write great comic book TV shows. They've written comic books themselves. They're lifelong fans. And I see that the Supergirl trailers have been divisive. A lot of people compare them to the SNL Black Widow sketch, which I haven't seen because, frankly, I don't care. But what people are overlooking when it comes to this show is that the main character is a girl. Yes, it's Supergirl. She's going to have more feminine aspects to her life. But if you're going to say that sounds stereotypical at all, I'm going to politely, not say what I was going to because we're on air. If this were an everyday conversation, I'd probably just toss out some obscenities if you were going to argue with me, but it's not stereotypical to have a female character have more female interests. I mean, it's kind of funny how she giggles with James Olsen, don't call him Jimmy, but she's very much your average American girl, where she's Kara Danvers. I don't know, by the way, they stress that it's Kara Danvers. They're really adamant about that pronunciation for some reason. I have been fortunate enough to see the pilot. Josh has not, though I'm sure he's seen his share of promos. And my impressions are that it shows a vast amount of potential. Was it a 10 out of 10 premiere? No. And who knows, they might put a few tweaks on the pilot before it airs in October. Stuff like that happens. Because if you remember, there was one cut of the Constantine pilot that had quite a bit than what eventually aired on NBC, I should say. So it's possible it'll happen with Supergirl, but it really has that vibe that this is going to be as passionate about its characters and material as The Flash, because we already see that they've cast various characters coming up. We're going to have Lucy and General Sam Lane, the Red Tornado, Live Wire's coming, even Hellgramite. It just seems like, much like The Flash, this could very much be a comic book fan's wet dream, and it kind of carries on the vein of what we didn't get on Smallville, because we've got a bigger budget on CBS than we would have on the CW. And one thing that I would like to point out is that Smallville, very much, you still had that trapping that he wasn't Superman yet. I mean, we eventually got to season 11 comic books, but Kara, I guess I'll have to call her Kara, even though I've been calling her Kara for the previous years of my life. She's going to be a full-fledged superhero in the pilot. Granted, she's going to go through her trial by fire and learn from her mistakes, but it puts us in a different territory that she's actively a costume superhero. And I really think Superman fans should give this a chance, because it's still very much within that world. Superman exists in this world, but he's kind of off screen, so to speak, because they want it to be Supergirl's show, and that does make sense to me. But it's, like I said, it's still that world. It's still those characters. It's still those villains. So if you're not too familiar with Supergirl herself and you just love Superman, seriously, just tune in. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? It's like how Gotham isn't giving me the Batman prequel that I've kind of been desiring. As I said on our previous episode, who knows? Season 2 could really hit its stride, but it's kind of like how I've said that I would still want a proper Batman show in my lifetime, because of how much you could explore with characters in 22 episodes as opposed to a 2-hour movie. But if you were still to give me, say, a Batgirl or Nightwing show, I would still love that, because it's still the Batman world. So we would get to see all those villains, and hopefully we'd have producers that take more care with the material than Gotham would. But it's, like I said, Supergirl really seems to have that Flash vibe to it, where it embraces its comic book and sci-fi-ness. I'm making up words as I go along. It embraces the character drama, and I think Melissa Benoist, at least based on the pilot, because again, actors and characters grow. It's like, even go back and watch the Flash pilot and look at how much change throughout that season as writers and actors grew into its skin, so to speak. She is very believable as Supergirl, and I think she does have the charm to go with it. Supporting cast, I need to see more of. I've never been much of a Callista Flockhart fan, but she kind of has this great kind of bitchy boss attitude, and I know that's what they're going for. It's almost like a J. Jonah Jameson type thing, but a female in a way. And then there's a Win shot. We assume he's going to be Toyman one day, but we'll see where that goes. Still need to see more with him. I really like Kara's sister Alex. I almost wonder if they're going to use that as an analog for Lex Luthor on the show, kind of her Lex, so to speak. Alex. Forgot the name of the guy playing Hank Henshaw, who we got to know is going to be Cyborg Superman one day. I think he did a pretty good job. Let's see. Makad Brooks as James Olsen. Mixed bag for me. Yeah, yes, he does a good job as an actor. He's got the charm, but I'm not quite sure he's good as Jimmy, James, whatever you want to call Olsen. And here's why. And I'm not going to make this an issue of race. I'll say that right out. I know Hollywood kind of does colorblind casting a lot these days. It's not because he's an African American actor. It's because just the kind of guy he is. We kind of think about Jimmy Olsen as, this awkward, geeky type. He doesn't have to be, for those who grew up in our generation, I'll use TV's greatest geek of our childhood, Urkel. It doesn't have to be that. We've seen recent incarnations of Jimmy Olsen that weren't, say, maybe as geeky as the Jimmy Olsen of the Christopher Reeve movies, but Aaron Ashmore on Smallville. What was the name of the guy from Superman Returns? Was it Sam Huntington?
Yeah, Sam Huntington.
Yeah. They were more kind of average Joes, but they were a bit more geeky and awkward. Mehcad Brooks is a very confident, almost jock type guy. It's not to say he can be a photojournalist, but like I said, it's not quite in the realm of what you expect to be those intrinsic qualities of Jimmy Olsen. Maybe we'll see him be a little more awkward as the series goes on, but I know he's supposed to be playing a little bit more of an older Jimmy Olsen than we're used to, because this is a guy that has already known Superman for years and is a transplant in this city that Kara's living in. But the guy, he's a very athletic build, and he almost looks like he would make a better superhero, honestly. I saw a Photoshop someone did of him online as Valzad, the Superman of Earth 2 from the current Earth 2 comics, and it was spot on, to be quite honest. It's like, yeah, he would be great for that version of the character. But again, I'm not discounting him as an actor, but it was just, I can kind of picture them doing that obligatory scene where like Kara goes over his apartment and he's just stepping out of the shower and he's like still glistening and he's got like the towel around his waist, and
if
it's
it
like,
doesn't
oh,
happen,
Kara, I had no idea you were coming over. Yeah, I could totally see them doing that non-Jimmy Olsen type shot with him, but
right.
But
So you saw the pilot. You saw the pilot, Eric. What was your overall take? You said it wasn't a 10. If you had to do a rating on the current version of the pilot that's out there, what would you rate it at?
Probably about an 8, because I think they've been screening it at some cons too. Well, at least it's been for audiences and stuff. We're not telling people to illegally download stuff. That's not what we're doing here.
For all they know, we saw it at a con.
Yeah.
Which we totally may have done that. As far as I know.
Yeah, and then plus they're really spoiling a lot in trailers too. I kind of hope they start showing footage from episode 2, at least in some trailers. But I would probably rate the pilot at least maybe an 8.5. Like I said, it probably won't be the best episode of season 1, but it has a wealth of potential behind it, and that's why I hope fans of DC Comics and the Superman/Supergirl corner of the DC universe really give it a chance, because like how we were all freaking out about the Flash last fall and throughout that year of television, I really think we could be doing that about Supergirl this time around. So I think that's pretty much all that's on my mind for now, but the visual effects were pretty pleasing for a television show. So Josh, Supergirl.
So first and foremost, you had mentioned a couple things. It's David Harewood is playing Hank Henshaw. So as far as like Mehcad Brooks, I was going to touch on that one. Is right now, I hate to say it because it's such a cliched turn of phrase, but geek chic is super in right now, and you don't have to really look any farther than say, the latest James Bond movie where they basically recast Q as this young kind of dorky hip cyber genius. You don't have to make Jimmy Olsen, a nerd genius or anything, a la say a nerdier, male version of Chloe from Smallville. But I mean, really, that's kind of what his character always kind of has been, and as a support character, I think you nailed it on the head in terms of like Aaron Ashmore's portrayal of him on Smallville is, yeah, he's not a heartthrob like McCad Brooks. I mean, the guy is friggin' ripped to pieces. If you haven't seen him on True Blood, the guy is like just straight up. He's just straight up got a superhero physique, like right out of the comic books. He's absolutely ripped, and he's a decent actor. I mean, I've seen him on that show. I've seen him on a couple other like bit things as a character actor, but he's pretty good. But I don't love the casting of him as James Olsen, and I could totally be wrong. Like, you know, maybe this is just a guy who's moved away from a dorky, unsure of himself Jimmy Olsen, and become a more, you know, experienced and successful James Olsen. You know, he wants to be taken seriously. That's something that's always been relatively consistent with that character in the comic books and every portrayal. And he wants to be taken very seriously for what he does, and he's always kind of living in Clark and Lois's shadow. But he's one of my favorite supporting characters from comics in general. And he's been given a lot of portrayals over the years, so I'm hoping that they'll do him justice. But Melissa Benoist, her, you know, she's got a really refreshing take. I've seen so many promos, and I've been meaning to watch the pilot. I just haven't had a chance to get around to it. But you know, it's one of those things where she gives that same energy and kind of light performance that you know, Grant Gustin does on The Flash. It's definitely a more optimistic and you know, bright, cheery side to the superhero genre. I mean, for everyone complaining that they're so sick and tired of DC doing, you know, dark, gritty, dreary everything because everything has to be Batman, according to Marvel fans. You know, this and The Flash are two really good examples that'll tell you that no, they don't. And you know, if you really, really, really hate dark, gritty takes on things, then that must be the reason that you went and saw Superman Returns in droves. But I think that it's got this really bright air about it that makes me, you know, overly optimistic. I think that it's going to have the ability to be a really strong show if they do a lot of what I think they're going to do. Yeah, they get a lot into, you know, the very female, and I don't want to say female in general, but the more overtly and, you know, distinctly feminine characteristics, like the idea of, you know, this woman who's a superhero, she's really going to be giggling and getting all nerdy and dropping all over herself. Well, yeah, she's had these powers, but that doesn't make her, you know, that doesn't make her not socially awkward as a young 24-year-old. So I think that that character will grow pretty well. But yeah, Callista Flockhart, yeah, she's doing the Devil Wears Prada type of thing, you know, the bitchy catty boss. She's Cat Grant, which is, you know, if anyone who's read a Superman comic book or has seen Cat Grant's portrayals on, you know, say Lois and Clark or anything like that, she's always been this kind of catty, sassy, bitchy, even alpha female. And I think that Callista Flockhart seems to nail down that character pretty much. I mean, if she's good enough for Harrison Ford, she's good enough for me as Cat Grant. But Kyler Leigh as Alex Danvers, I actually like that actress. I've seen her in quite a few things, and I've always liked her as an actress, so I'm sure she'll do good as Alex Danvers. I don't know if she's going to go the Lex route, but I'm excited to see a bunch of other things. I mean, we've got a lot of casting news. You know, Owain Yeoman as Vartox. I really like him from The Mentalist, and he's a big friggin' guy. I don't really see him as like a villain turn, and obviously he's taking that route. He's such a clean-cut looking guy.
Oh, we forgot a detail. Maxwell Lord's the big bad for season 1.
Yeah. Peter Facinelli's Maxwell Lord, or Facinelli. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his last name. Yeah, his Maxwell Lord is probably going to be pretty interesting. I mean, the really interesting thing about Maxwell Lord is that he's got a pretty deep history in Superman comics and Supergirl comics as, you know, as a well, I'll just, I won't say this to potentially spoil what could, be an eventual reveal, but he's got a lot more going on behind the scenes than just being a tech mogul as they're portraying him in this show. But they're bringing in a lot of interesting villains, Reactron, Livewire. Yeah, Hellgrammet, like what's that all about? That's pretty random. They're getting into some deep OG stuff. But I think that I'm excited to see, Dean Cain and Helen Slater, make reprisals in the Superman universe. I kind of love the fact that DC tends to, go that route in their casting, pay homage to these former actors or actresses that have been in the series or movies or even voice acting and things like that. So I'm really excited to see some of that. I don't know where they're going to go with the Winslow shot route, Win shot, but yeah, his character is based on the Toyman, and my question is he going to be the disturbing pedophile Toyman? That's what I really want. Is he going to kill Cat Grant's son, which he absolutely does in the comic books? That could be some pretty dark stuff for an otherwise light and airy show. But, I'm really willing to give this a chance. I'm definitely not going to not tune in because I'm a huge Superman fan. I'm also a Supergirl fan. I've collected her comics as well over the time. And, Supergirl is a really interesting character. I mean, she's been portrayed as at times being as strong, if not stronger than Superman. She adds an interesting female perspective to, her perception of the world. And girl power is like a really gigantic thing right now. And I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but, everybody and their brother, or should I say sister, is trying to write and create movies and series and things like that with these heroines as the lead, from, the Hunger Games to obviously shows like this, shows like, say, an iZombie. And I think that it's going to pay off. I mean, we know we have DC's going to be having an animated show coming up based on more of their female characters, and I think that they're really trying to get girls and younger women, heck, up to middle-aged to elderly women. Why not? Let's get them all watching something like Supergirl if they can. Let's give them something that might appeal to females. And get them interested in maybe the superhero genre. So they could have a winner on their hands, but, time will tell and we'll see. But definitely looks appealing based on all the promos that I've seen. It's looked everything from really bad to really amazing, and the special effects do look impressive. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the show and seeing what it has to offer. And like you said, with Berlanti and Kreisberg on deck, my fingers are crossed that they're going to knock it out of the park again, like they already have with Arrow and the Flash. But let's move on to the next one, Eric. I know you wanted to talk about Legends of Tomorrow. Did you want to go over that one next, or move on?
Yeah, we'll go with that. And though technically we've now concluded talking about DC shows that premiere in the fall, technically Legends of Tomorrow doesn't premiere until January on the CW, but there's just been so much excitement surrounding the show that we really want to address it, and especially when all the trailers were dropping. Well, technically really one trailer, but I think there's been some behind the scenes clips here and there. They dropped while we were on hiatus over the summer, as well as details and such. This was a trailer that really seemed to get everyone excited, because it almost seems like, how do we do a Justice League show on primetime television without it being the Justice League? Well, get some characters we've already established on The Flash and Arrow, tie them to that universe, and They're all going to be on this show that premieres mid-season. It's going to be 13 episodes. And yes, they're going to plant some of the seeds on Arrow and The Flash coming up. I believe Sarah Lance gets her resurrection on episode 5 of Arrow, which is the one with Constantine in it. We talked a bit about that last week. So off the top of my head, the lineup that we're going to see for this Legends of Tomorrow team, we have Brandon Routh as the Atom, Ray Palmer, Katie Lotz as Sarah Lance / White Canary. So we're going to see how she is coming out of the Lazarus pit after being dead for a year. Is she going to have some villainous tones to her? We'll just have to wait and see. We have Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell returning as Captain Cold and Heatwave respectively, which is kind of interesting because they're villains, but I guess Rip Hunter's philosophy is that we're going to cull together the people best suited for the job because there's going to be this time-spanning threat. And I don't have it in front of me, Josh, but if you want to pull up in a tab right now, the other actors and actresses on the show, because we've got some newcomers to the CW DC universe.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Well, Rip Hunter, Hawkgirl, and Hawkman are the ones who are part of the principal cast. And, of course, we have Victor Garber as Dr. Martin Stein, half of Firestorm. But I guess they've said on The Flash that we'll probably learn why only Martin Stein is part of this team. But I think her name's Kiara Renee that's playing Hawkgirl. I just can't remember the names of the people playing Rip Hunter and
you have Arthur
Hawkman.
Darville as Rip Hunter and Kiara or Sierra Renee as
Well, I said that, but who's Hawkman?
Hawkman's played by Falk Henschel. He is a super German named Falk Henschel. I've never actually heard of him before, but he actually was born in East Germany, so he's super uber German. But yeah, Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell, I'm pretty excited about that. But then we also have a Franz Drama as Jay Jackson.
Yeah, they're kind of keeping his character under wraps. We've got people theorizing, is he Static Shock? Is he Black Lightning? Is he someone else? Some people say Cyborg, but again, I doubt that because Cyborg is tied up in the cinematic universe. Or the DC Extended Universe, as they're now calling it. Personally, I'd hope for Black Lightning because I don't believe that character's been in live action at all. But yeah, just how awesome would the Black Lightning suit look in live action?
Especially with like an Arrow twist to it. But, speaking of suits, I had read an article indicating, I think it was either Kreisberg or it might have even been Mark Guggenheim. They were talking about some of the biggest problems and issues with the show, and one of them was obviously dealing with a significantly larger cast of superheroes simultaneously. The other one was the fact that apparently the Ray Palmer / the Atom costume costs as much as an average American house.
But does it cost more than Ric Flair's shoes?
It doesn't cost more than Ric Flair's shoes and belt combined. His shoes.
Because we've known for years that Ric Flair's shoes cost more than your house.
It's true. It's true. More than the average front row sitter at a World Wrestling Entertainment show. But yeah, something in the realm of, I think it was like $189,000 for the Atom costume. So that's out of my price range for a house. But anyway, I thought that was a pretty interesting detail. And then obviously, yeah, we recently found out that Hawkman's going to be a recurring series regular. So that's pretty interesting. And then you also forgot to mention recurring good old Casper Crump.
Yeah, I was actually going to get to that. The big bad for season 1 of Legends is going to be Vandal Savage,
which is awesome.
And Casper Crump. If you haven't seen him yet, looks like Vandal Savage.
The guy is like spitting image.
Yeah, at least from an aesthetic point of view, it's perfect casting.
Right. He could
And
be a
I don't know
horrible
if he's
actor.
going to live up to his name and do some crumping at some point in the series. But it's cool they're going with that character because they've tried to do it live action before. For those of you unfamiliar, Dean Cain, when he played Curtis Knox on Smallville, that was supposed to be Vandal Savage. And in fact, you can go back and watch that episode and say, yeah, that's Vandal Savage. They just called him Curtis Knox. The reasoning for that was they had him ready to go as Vandal Savage, and then WB's film division calls and says, no, you can't call him Vandal Savage because we have that tied up in a movie we're putting out right now. And then lo and behold, whatever movie that was going to be didn't happen. Something
Right.
killed by the writer's strike. My guess, maybe it was the Teen Titans movie, because you remember there was supposed to be a Teen Titans movie dated for 2010, and the writer's strike killed it. So
Right.
maybe it was that one.
He's also going to get a couple appearances on The Flash and Arrow for each of their respective episode 8 of this season.
But that would be that would be the annual Flash Arrow crossover, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. So, and I believe we forgot to point out that Hawk Girl will be the Kendra Saunders version of the character. So again, referencing Earth 2 comics, if you've read those over the past few years in the New 52, that's if you want to familiarize. Let's try another go with it. If you want to familiarize yourself with the Kendra Saunders take on Hawk Girl, and this is probably where they're drawing much of their inspiration from, do go back and read her recent Earth 2 appearances. It's a bit different from Shira Hall, though they're probably going to still do the Hawkman, Hawk Girl romance.
Oh yeah, almost certainly. Even though it's Carter Hall, yeah, she's been in a lot. I mean, as far as the character of Kendra Saunders, she's been in quite a bit of JSA stuff. I was a big fan of the JSA before the New 52. That was a pretty good, solid comic, and she's been in several other things, as you indicated. Obviously, the recent Earth 2 was the most common. So
I just also wanted to point out that as I said, it's a 13 episode season. Something interesting that they said about it is that it's going to be more of an anthology type show. So I wouldn't doubt if it gets a second season that we see it premiere each January for a short season. And whereas the Flash and Arrow have this continuous story, and granted there's a big bad every year, each season spills into the next. They've said that Legends will each season's going to kind of be its standalone thing, where it's not to say Vandal Savage will never show up again, but season 2 we'll see a different villain. We'll possibly see a radically different lineup from the team. They could cull together other characters from Arrow and the Flash, maybe throw in some new ones we haven't seen before, but it also makes it an interesting premise that it's going to keep each season fresh. We're going to wonder what we're going to see each subsequent season, and very exciting times, as we keep saying, for superheroes on TV. But the CW said, yeah, beyond this, no more DC TV shows on our network, because they are going to start to spread it too thin, and it's too much of a good thing, and you're also going to tap too many characters that you could use. But it's a great way to make use of the characters they have, because a year or less we were talking, everyone's saying what characters are going to get their show next, and people were saying the Atom, and I always maintain the Atom by itself isn't enough to sustain a TV show. I know the character's been around for a long time. I just don't think that his mythology is extensive to tap as the Flash or Green Arrow, and he's just not as well known or popular. But hey, put them with other heroes, and people love team ups. And here we go, and we've got what's hopefully another home run for them. So, anything you'd like to add here, Josh?
No, not particularly. I mean, obviously, I'm excited about this one because it seems like it's such a very comic book series. I mean, we're a show that let its comic book freak flag fly as much as The Flash did in season one. I mean, this one, we're not getting any really significant character building from a large portion of the cast because we've already got it. The only characters that we're really needing to do any type of significant character development on is really, Rip Hunter, aka time traveler Rogue, who's going to be behind kind of the time/universe spanning that they're going to be doing in the show. Kendra Sanders Hawkgirl and Carter Hall Hawkman, not to include Jay Jackson or Vandal Savage. I mean, I'm certain that we'll probably get a little bit of that character development for Vandal Savage on that episode 8 of Flash and Arrow. But outside of that, we're instantly jumping into Victor Garber's Professor Stein. We're instantly getting a ton of superheroes instantly. That's something that really hasn't happened in a regular television show. I mean, we've had things like in Smallville where it's led up to several superheroes, combining in a team for an episode. And we've even seen in recent episodes of The Flash and in Arrow where you had several of them team up at a time. I think the most we've seen on screen on those shows is, maybe The Flash, Arrow, Atom, and Firestorm at a time. So we're going from 4 to like 7 or 8 superheroes and then their companions simultaneously. That's going to be a lot of juggling to do. Like you kind of said, we're really having an embarrassment of riches in terms of, what we're getting from DC TV. But, a lot of people, granted, DC TV is not DC as a whole. It's not Warner Brothers as a whole and all of the characters that they own the rights to. But, we're not only getting a ton of DC on TV this fall and into next year, but we're getting a ton of DC on film next year as well. And I do think that oversaturation is something that they're concerned about. Warner Brothers specifically, who also owns CW. So I think that there's, quite a bit to be concerned about in terms of giving us too much at a time. I do think that it's a good reason that they're not throwing one more or, a few more shows onto the CW. It would start to get a little bit like, primetime lineup overkill for superheroes. And I know superheroes are gigantically huge right now. But, that being said, not every single superhero is bringing in, Iron Man or Batman money. There are, look at Ant-Man, a character who's very similar to the Atom. Yes, his movie was, successful, but was it nearly as successful as, Captain America, Thor? Was it as successful as any of the Avengers film? No, not even close. But nonetheless, it has an audience, and I think that with as good of a cast they have, because this is a pretty impressive cast. I mean, with the if these supporting characters that we haven't seen yet, like Falk Henschel or Franz Drema or Arthur Dalrymple, are if they're good actors and actresses, they could really have a super big hit. And I know that the promo that we've seen so far is super exciting. A lot of people on both sides of, the Marvel and the DC aisle, because you always see contention online, but a lot of people who really like comic books saw it and were like, oh man, this series looks like it's going to be really awesome. And it is diving into the deep end of comic book lore, and it's completely going off the deep end in terms of its, absolutely adopting every sci-fi element that you would need to. We're talking about time spanning, universe / dimension spanning. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do it yet with a bunch of superheroes. I mean, you don't get more of an awesome sci-fi slash superhero show than that. And I could see this bringing in huge fans of the sci-fi genre who aren't even necessarily huge superhero fans, and vice versa. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Legends of Tomorrow, and when they do start to do the cross promotion that I'm sure they'll do with Arrow and the Flash to kind of introduce some of these characters in a minor way, it's just going to make that whole Arrowverse slash Flashverse universe, feel like a more cohesive, impressive, big world and universe.
So from here, I think we'll go on to Lucifer.
Yeah, Lucifer. This is quite literally the dark horse of the ones that we're going to talk about. Well, maybe not, but we'll get there.
So Fox, having a hit with Gotham, has decided to delve in further into the DC pool as well. Lucifer, based on the Vertigo comic, and for those keeping track at home, iZombie on the CW, also a Vertigo comic. But the thing with Lucifer, I've never read the comics. I know it's very much a John Milton Paradise Lost influence type Lucifer. So, I mean, I guess I'm more familiar with Paradise Lost than the Vertigo comics, but I know they've taken some liberties with the TV show. I'm just not sure if they've set a premiere date, a concrete one for 2016. I think it's just labeled 2016, so maybe it'll be a mid-season show as well, maybe even a summer series. We'll probably hear sometime before 2015 is out, but we've got Tom Ellis as the title character. I have seen a promo for Lucifer. I think there's a detailed 6-minute promo out there. You could probably find it on YouTube. I know the pilot has leaked. I haven't seen that, and again, we're saying we're not encouraging you to download pilots, but
Piracy
in short,
is bad, okay?
in short, Lucifer, I think he becomes bored with hell, so he comes to Earth and decides to help cops solve crimes. He works with the LAPD, I believe. He owns a nightclub. He can compel sinners to do his will. It kind of sounds like this show can go either way, but as with all DC things, I'll give it a chance. But if it doesn't do well, I think Fox will cancel it after 5 minutes, as they do with most things. But I think for Fox to go with this one's a bit ambitious.
Right.
Not the first DC property you would expect them to adapt. I know it's caused a lot of backlash from religious fanatics.
Right. I'm sure Mothers Against whatever is going to be.
Yeah, let's not name them by name. We'll call them Mothers Against.
Mothers Against Fiction, I guess. I don't know.
Mothers Against not being happy in life and just complaining about everything you see. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they can do for this show what they did for Marilyn Manson in the 90s. From those in our generation, Marilyn Manson went from playing clubs to selling out arenas overnight, and that was just all from people making up stuff about him. None of it was true. Not to get too sidetracked here, but that's they're saying just, how can you use this character in almost a protagonistic way? And it's not the first time it's probably happened in any form of media, but we'll see how it goes. I'm personally not offended by anything on the show. I'll just be offended if it sucks.
Right.
But yeah, as we can say, I don't think Josh has read Lucifer comics either.
I've read a little Sandman, and I've thumbed through, just like I haven't read a ton of, say, like Hellblazer, but just as I've read, enough to be at the very least, initiated with the character. I've read enough of, Lucifer comics here and there and Sandman comics, because one of my best friends is just been a gigantic Sandman fan since he started reading comics when we were young kids. I'm initiated with the character, but I am surprised that Fox is deciding to not only adapt the comic Lucifer, but to actually call the show Lucifer as well is a little ambitious. I mean, I dare say they're even hoping for controversy, under the whole no press is bad press moniker. But I'm actually, this, it looks like it could be an interesting thing. I want to say the most interesting thing about this is that it's developed by Tom Capanos, which is the same guy who developed one of my favorite comedy / dramedies in recent memory, which was Californication on Showtime. And that show was a hot fucking mess, for lack of a better way to put it. And it was very, I don't know, it was very self-aware and very self-referential. It was also, at sometimes deep and then at other times completely juvenile. So I don't know if that's going to give us any indication as to what Lucifer is going to be like, but it's got all of the players in place that it needs to be a pretty successful television show, I would think. But the fact that it's on Fox is the biggest concern that I have in terms of whether or not, even if it is a good show, that it will remain on the air and or be successful.
Yeah. So since, again, this is a topic we don't know too much, we're not going to drone on and sound almost scatterbrained about it. So I guess in a year we'll reconvene and talk more Lucifer, maybe review the pilot whenever it does air. So one more show we want to talk about, one that if you've read about it, it's made all of us scratch our heads. Powerless, coming to NBC. I don't think they've set a concrete date for it. Don't know if it's going to be mid-season, fall 2016. But hey, apparently NBC still wants to swim in the DC Comics pool, but they want to cancel Constantine. So what do? They don't get another DC property. They want to go for a half-hour sitcom based in the DC universe, an Office type comedy set in this realm. And it's I think about an insurance agency, and we always make the jokes like how high insurance rates must be in Metropolis. So this is what they're going for, and I know what Josh is. There's a point he's probably going to touch on. So what I'm going to say about, okay, I don't really like much comedy these days, especially sitcoms, but being DC, I guess I'll give the pilot a chance. But I think this is a step backwards. Again, I don't think it's a smart move by NBC to dump Constantine in favor of this, which I don't know many fans are going to get behind. Just what I really want to say about it is how it feels like a step backwards. Okay, let's wind the clocks back before even Arrow premiered. Okay, we had Smallville on TV, and that was pretty much for a bit the only actual TV show based on a real comic book property. For its ups and downs, people liked Heroes, and for all those rejoicing for its return, I just don't forget that you bitched about everything except for season 1. So I'm assuming you're all going to start bitching again with Heroes Reborn. Though a few years back, we were getting these shows like The Cape and No Ordinary Family, I think it was called, and I was just screaming, heroes are starting to take over the box office. Just give us some TV shows based on some goddamn comic books. I did watch The Cape for a bit, but there were just all these analogs of Batman and Spider-Man villains that it was freaking ridiculous. And I remember remember when Facebook actually used to have discussion forums? I was on the Cape forum, and there was a woman on there saying that she had been waiting years for a show called The Cape because she grew up, I mean, a show like The Cape, I should say, because she grew up on Linda Carter's Wonder Woman, stuff like that. And this Smallville being on the CW, which is a network I guess not too many people watch, people didn't know Smallville existed, surprisingly. And I guess it's good that more superheroes are populating our airwaves, but again, it's granted it's based in the DC universe, but it's also, again, not a superhero show, and I think it's, for so many reasons, just the wrong way to go. Let's not take a step backward. Let's not. Oh yeah, by the way, the Cape was on NBC. By the way, as I believe it ran for, I think it had a 13 episode season, and then they pulled it and then aired the last 2 episodes online or something, basically without really even advertising. It's just like, hey, the Cape's gone. You like it? Go online. But I don't know. I guess we'll discuss it more as the news trickles out. Who knows? It might not even happen. I mean, we're still waiting on those Booster Gold and Krypton TV shows, right?
Yeah.
So
who knows if we'll ever see anything of that?
Yeah. Okay. Your 2 cents on Powerless, Josh.
I mean, I think that in situations like this, Tim Allen said it best, which was just a grunt of utter confusion. I don't quite know what to make of Powerless. Now, unlike you, I'm a little more jovial, and I can tolerate and even enjoy the modern sitcom at times. But, the thing that really just makes me scratch my head is with all of the various properties, you intend to do a show that's as unusual as this. And I think what really made a lot of comic book fans scratch their head a little bit more was apparently there is, I'm not very versed in it, but apparently there was a Marvel Comics group of characters called Damage Control. And it was pretty much the exact same premise. It was this idea of a bunch of people who were kind of the normal non-powered people, in a world full of superheroes, like working at a mundane business. And I just thought that was like, I hate, first things first, I cannot stand it when either particular comic book company tries to just blatantly rip off the other, but then also especially DC, which seems to be, panned by every Marvel fanboy, is then going to have, a show that's essentially going to rip off of a concept from Marvel. It's just like, oh, groan. Please don't give them any more fuel for the hatred fires that will flame on, on a comic book forum or something like that. But I really enjoyed The Office. I thought it was a funny show, and you add some quirky unusualness to something like normal characters in a world where there's superpowers. I'm not going to say that it doesn't have potential. I'm not that much of a pessimist, but I am a realist, and I think that it's an unusual turn with all of the properties that they have, and with shows that as are successful as Arrow and The Flash, and as we're hoping something like Legends of Tomorrow might be. You do have your failures. You do have your heroes. I enjoyed the show Heroes.
And NBC is a great place for failure.
It is a great place for failure. I mean, they're taking off one of the best shows I've ever seen, Hannibal, after 3 seasons. And I understand that it's because it doesn't have a huge viewing audience, but that doesn't keep it from being one of the best written, directed, acted, I could name cinematographically shot. It's one of the most prolifically incredible shows I've ever seen, and it's going to be gone after 3 seasons. Fine, you want to not have one of the best characters that's ever been on mainstream television off television anymore. That's fine. Get rid of Hannibal. But if you think that you're going to do that and then have extreme success with this show, like, I just don't understand what NBC's thinking. But I could be wrong. It could be a very funny comedy, and it could, find a really weird niche place. I don't know if they're trying to cash in on the success of the, I guess, somewhat superhero related Big Bang Theory. Hey, it's a bunch of nerds who don't have powers who like superheroes, and they're funny, right? So maybe we can have a successful show just doing a show about that. I don't know. I guess I won't count my chickens till they're hatched. But if I'm a betting man, let's just say that I am not doubling down or going all in on Powerless on NBC.
Yeah, we don't have enough time left for me to take a big steaming dump on the Big Bang Theory, which I could do. Um, since we've got a few minutes left, I told Josh I wanted to do this before the show if we did. I'm going to give a quick review for Hitman Agent 47. Josh hasn't seen it yet, but I have. I saw it this past weekend, actually yesterday, and unfortunately, it had an opening of something like 8.3 million. So unless it gets a straight DVD sequel, there's never going to be another Hitman movie. It's a reboot, does not have anything to do with the 2007 movie with Tim Oliphant, even though it does have the same screenwriter, and for some reason 47 is protecting a girl again, and the movie's actually more about her than it is Agent 47. But I'll say this, it does not deserve the 7% it has on Rotten Tomatoes. At least that's what it was the last time I checked.
It's 8%.
Okay, I just think that critics convene somewhere in a dark back room and say, okay, guys, never ever give a positive review to a horror movie or anything based on a video game. Because for some reason critics have too much power these days. But anyway, I'll say this quickly. Hitman Agent 47 is an enjoyable movie. It takes a little bit to find its footing because toward the beginning the girl's popping pills and it's almost shot like an art house movie for some reason. But maybe, I mean, I'm in a theater so I don't have a timer, but maybe somewhere before the 30-minute mark it really finds its footing and hits its stride. Keep in mind it's a first-time director here, but it's very much not the silent assassin, and you can gather that from the trailers. If you were to give him a mission ranking by the end, he's going to get serial killer or mass murderer. He's not going to have money, and he doesn't retrieve his suits, though he does go through some disguises, and for fans of the games it's kind of funny. And they even throw the rubber duck Easter egg in there. It's Rupert Friend I liked better as 47 than Timothy Oliphant. It would have been cool to see a franchise built with him. There is a mid-credit scene, so it's obvious they want a sequel, and it's probably not going to happen. The action scenes are very well done. There's some very good fight choreography. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's certainly not bad. I would probably give it about a 7 out of 10. And there's certainly a lot of nod to the games, and it's not 100% faithful because, I mean, what adaptation is, especially for video games, but it's much more faithful to its Hitman source material than Resident Evil is to any of its material. And as we've said on the show before, Resident Evil movies and video games are two very separate entities, but I like to think that Hitman is much more close to its roots. Not as much as, like, say, Silent Hill movies, but if you're a Hitman fan, you're curious, you're open-minded, at least catch a matinee and give Hitman Agent 47 a chance. Who knows? Maybe it'll put up some decent DVD sales, and it could get that straight-to-DVD sequel one day, because, hey, straight-to-DVD movies are actually a pretty decent market. Who knows? maybe in a few years we'll see Hitman by way of WWE studios, and we're gonna get
With John Cena.
not necessarily as the title character, but yeah, it's gonna be. It's funny because they keep throwing wrestlers in more movies, but yeah, we'll have Rupert Friend versus like Roman Reigns or something. And
Yeah,
it's
the movie has a lot of great character actors. I mean, I really liked Rupert Friend in Showtime's Homeland, and Ciarán Hinds. He's a fantastic actor, and Zachary Quinto. He's a pretty popular guy. I mean, I also enjoy his acting. He's a good actor. But yeah, I mean, these movies, I haven't seen it yet, and I've seen as much as anyone who hasn't seen the film has seen on trailers and spots and things like that. And it looks basically to be what I expected from a movie like that. I'll tell you what, I mean, it doesn't look any better or worse than the latest Fast and Furious movie based on the promos. I'm surprised that crowd's not going to this movie in droves. And I don't necessarily mean that as any insult. It's just it looks like an everyman movie for people who like action films. It's kind of interesting that some of them hit their mark and some of them don't. But yeah, I want to see the movie, and I'll definitely check it out, even if I only end up seeing it in a matinee. I did enjoy the games, and I know that we've played those games, had a good time.
Yeah, Josh knows anytime there's a new Hitman game or movie, I'm going to take part just because I love Hitman so much.
Right. No, it's I mean, and I was really looking. At the time I was not a huge Timothy Oliphant fan when that came out, and then he really won me over with Justified as a TV show. So I really need to go back and watch the original Hitman, but. He didn't really win me over in that role, but Rupert Friend, he's got that darker, a little bit more edgy, look to him that I would expect from someone like Agent 47. So
Yeah, I like Tim Oliphant since Scream too. Billy's mother.
All right, well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for our show tonight. Eric, any closing words or thoughts on anything we talked about?
Not really. I was thinking maybe since, we had that big hiatus this summer, maybe in a week or two, for the hell of it, we'll come back and discuss DC movies for a little bit. Some recent developments.
Yeah, once the shows start dropping, we're going to have obviously a whole lot to talk about from week to week. And I don't think we're going to do a review on every episode, obviously, but we tend to do obviously the mid-season review, and there's going to be a whole lot of shows to go over this year. But there's a lot to see, and there's a lot to look forward to this season, and not only on television but also in films, like I said, from DC. It's going to be a very exciting next 18 months.
All right, I think we're going to call it there. Before we part ways, I will plug our sites for all the latest Batman news, reviews of comic books and such. Batman across all forms of media, merchandise, you name it. Visit darkknightnews.com for all the latest news pertaining to all things DC across all media. Visit dccomicsnews.com, and for just random stuff at times, other comic book reviews here and there. If Archie still sends me stuff, and a backlog of every episode of our podcast, visit our blog site at multiverseentertainment.wordpress.com, and be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/a podcast for all seasons. So until our next episode, thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Whew, take a breath. That was a long one. Thank you for joining us as usual. And like Eric said, we will be back probably in a week or so to give you the latest and greatest in comic book and comic book related news. Thanks for joining us again. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.